Susie on the track.
Hello and welcome to the Loyal and True Show. I'm your host, Colin Easley, and shout out to all the listeners listening from my Instagram account at Oklahoma State FB and on my YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This is obviously February 17th. Not a lot going on here at Oklahoma State. I only really have two big headlines for you. In the last episode, we covered what went on in the recruiting day, the signing day, and we got all that covered. So there's only two really big headlines this week. Number one, Mason gets called the second most overrated prospect in the country. Second most overrated prospect in the country, behind Baker Mayfield. So OU fans can't really talk about that one. I'm just kidding. I read this report. I was like, why? I want to see why they think Mason is the second most overrated prospect. This guy he has a weak arm and plays in a bull SHIT scheme. I don't like cussing on here. You know what? That is the least true thing I've ever heard. Mason has had one of the best arms in college football this year. And also in this article, he compared him to Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty is a very mentally weak player. I mean, I haven't really watched him in the pros, but just off of college football at Baylor, he was mentally weak when it came to big situations. I mean, watch the Fiesta Bowl in 2013. Watch the Oklahoma State game in 2013. He was a mentally weak player. Mason is not. The only thing I see wrong with Mason this whole year, this was a good year for him, was his clutch. He was in clutch situations. OU had a chance to win, overthrew the ball that was intended for Tyron Johnson. Kansas State couldn't get it to go against James Washington. That was the really only thing I could see wrong with Mason Rudolph. His freshman through junior season, he had this thing where if someone got him in, if he was pressured in the pocket, even just a little bit, he would just flinch and he'd fumble the ball. At this time, this year, wasn't really a problem. He did have a prone to fumble a lot, or he has a tendency to fumble under pressure. Improved that this year. He has no off-the-field issues, unlike Baker. He was on the cover of the FCA magazine. If you don't know what that is a fellowship of Christian athletes. He's a good person, smart, intelligent. Was the passing leader this year. And I know people are going to say, well, that's because of James Washington. You really think James Washington could do that under Felipe Franks at Florida, for example? I don't think so. Mason is actually one of the most underrated this class has seen. And whatever, I don't like to say idiot, but whatever idiot put this article out there, he has not done his research. Mason is not an overrated player. I don't care what the media tells you. It is not true. He does not have a weak arm. Search up Mason Rudolph highlights. You'll have 10 highlights of him making these amazing throws. I really just can't. I literally watch him every Saturday, and I watch the tape in the off season. I've tried to find it. I just couldn't. He's improved. I mean, I can't really see what this guy is getting. How is he getting this? It blows my mind. He says this is a scout report. I don't think so. He's saying he's a second-round guy. I agree. I mean, people are going to read this, the scouts, but he is a steal. My projection is he goes in the first round to New England, serves as a backup for Tom Brady. And that's not a bad deal because, Brady's going to be going out in a couple of seasons. And they're going to need another quarterback to come in, and I think Mason would do a good job with that. So, whatever so-called expert wrote this, next time just look up a highlight tape and it will prove you all wrong. All right, and in the second topic, the first FPI ranking came out. This is a ranking. It's not top 25, not AP. It's by ESPN. It ranks every team in the Power 5, what they think, and they just came out with it a couple of days ago. Oklahoma State is ranked at number 21 on the list. And they project, according to the FBI, they project them to be third in the Big 12, behind at number 9, Oklahoma, and behind number 17, Texas. They got Texas at number 17. Do I agree with this ranking? I think it's a little too high, to be honest with you. Obviously, I looked at our whole depth of our defense. We have a pretty experienced we didn't lose a ton on our defense. I think we'll be okay in the defensive side of the ball. I know that's weird coming in my mouth. But I don't know how our quarterback's play is going to be. Because, we rely so heavily on our quarterback. It's hard to assess. Drew Brown, obviously, if we start Drew Brown or Spencer Sanders, will probably be an opening day decision. I don't know if Drew Brown has the caliber to lead Oklahoma State to a top 25 team. Spencer Sanders is the same way. You just don't know. Obviously, we do have a good backfield. I say that every episode with Justice Hill. I think this is a little too high. I think we're just slightly out. I think we're in the 30 range, high 30 range, to be honest with you. But they have Oklahoma and Texas in front of us. Oklahoma's at number 9, so it's not as high as a lot of people projected them to be. The thing about Oklahoma this year, and we'll obviously talk a little bit more about this as the year goes on, I think they'll be good. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they lost Baker Mayfield, they'll suck. I mean, the reason why Baker Mayfield was so good this year, and so good throughout, was because of that offensive line. I don't want any of you fanboys or OU fanboys to troll up the comment section to argue with me. They can't. It was his offensive line. He was obviously one of the clutchest players this year. I mean, when the team wanted him to win, he went out and win. But so much of his success was to his offensive line. And most of his offensive line this year were juniors, and they're coming back for their senior year. So I think even if Kyler Murray's not as elite as Baker, I still think that they'll still get in the top 10 and win the Big 12. I know most OSU fans don't want to hear it. Looking in the 2019-2018 season, 2019-2020, that's weird to come out my mouth, season, we might be talking, it's a whole different story. But with that offensive line, I think that's at least I think they still have a legit shot at the Big 12. Now Texas at number 17. Tom Herman's a good coach. Duh. I mean, that's been established more than enough times. I mean, he took a team that was in total dismay, that had no sense of urgency, had no accountability, to a team that went to a bowl game and dominated one of the best offenses with Drew Lock in Missouri. So, do I think Herman can lead them to the top 25? Sure, Shane Buechele is a great quarterback. I mean, that's no secret. I mean, not Shane Buechele. Sam Ehlinger. Excuse me. Sam Ehlinger is a great quarterback. He played very well against us. He played very well against OU. And I think they're riding high on that. They have another awesome recruiting class coming in. I mean, that's just Texas, I mean, they're in one of the most best places to recruit, Texas. They have a guy named Cameron Rising from California coming in, which, as expected, there's a little bit of quarterback controversy going on, kind of like what we have here. But do I think this is too high? I think this is just right, Texas always gets a lot of preseason hype, They have the big contract with ESPN. They have the Longhorn Network. I think that's a load of crap, but that's a rant for another day. But I agree, Texas's defense played pretty tough this year. I mean, they weren't a world beaters. But recounting back at number 21, I think it's a little too high. If it's at 25, I'd be like, it's a little, maybe a bit too high a spec, but that's just about right. But I'm glad that it shows that the media is on our side. Even a down season like this, where we're not expected to win the Big 12, we're still ranked in the top 25 in the preseason. That just raises the expectations for the players, and that could be good and bad. I tend to like it when they underrate us, and then we come back. But it's February. A lot could happen. It's still early. Well, that is about it. We're about 196, 195, haven't checked, days away from the opening day against Missouri State. We will be back with you for another episode. Like I said, these will be short till the season starts to come, and then I will do my season predictions. But that was just a reaction to some of the two biggest parts of the headlines of these last couple of weeks. Thank you for listening to the Loyal and True Show here on National Sports Radio. And if you're listening on YouTube at Oklahoma State FB, please subscribe. And thank you so much for listening. Go Pokes, and see you in a couple of weeks.